Welcome to the October 2022 release of Hellscape assets for Dungeondraft. This is a Patreon exclusively for Dungeondraft assets for science fiction, modern, cyberpunk, whatever you want. But being October, I decided to do something creepy, at least a few assets for it. So there is this new set. It's kind of a spidery, viney thing, but it's designed to be overlaid on top of existing assets, even ones that I don't make. So what you do, you pick out your walls or whatever, build your space or take an existing space. And then in the paths, you will find this new one that when you set your layers to above the walls, it overlays nicely on top of any given wall, turning it into a creepy, spidery, infested thing. And of course, you can see it terminates in an ugly way here, which is why you can now find a new wall detail object, the tags here in wall detail. These are just things that are designed to drop on top of walls to bridge gaps and fix some of the weirdness that you get in Dungeondraft. But I've added these two, which when set to above the walls, now you can have those wall openings or doorways end in a way that looks more appealing. You also have ones for intersections and T-shaped intersections to help tie those together. Next, moving on to how to cover your floors, there is a new pattern. There's a couple of them. The first has transparency. So that can drop right onto any floor, turning it into something a little creepy. And you might wonder how to prevent it from ending in another way that's ugly, that cuts off. There's a few different things you can do. One of them is there's a new terrain, which has height built in. You can see how the background fades out before the foreground. And you can use this to blend into some other terrain or material. Another option is to bridge the doorway with paths, which I have done here. You've got more paths here. You've got more of a vine and then a single. And what you can do is just kind of hide that. Additionally, you could grab this single and set the transition out to shrink. And now it'll look kind of like more, we'll go under. You can end it that way. And then also you can take your pattern and draw out my pattern, switch to the point-to-point drawing mode that lets you build polygons, and use the underlying pattern here to decide where you're going to do your cutoff. So if the lower right here was the area that's leaving the creepy zone, I'm going to turn snap on and do these two corners. And turn it back off, and I'm just kind of going in between those other vines. And now when I remove the underlying one, which was just there as a guide, it kind of ignores that corner and hides any cutoff that you might have there. Additionally, when you come to things like boxes or any box-shaped object, you may want to put vines on top of that and not have to do it manually. So there are several different sizes of these boxed arranged coverings that you can drop on top. And of course, you've got round ones in small and large sizes. And given that these assets are made at 256 pixels per grid square, and you're normally not going to output at full resolution, a lot of times you can go up to twice an object size without getting pixelation on the final image. Next, the creepiness goes up a little bit. We've added these spider egg type things. There are small ones, there are large ones. You can rotate them and flip them to get some variety. And then they each come with a burst open effect you can drop on top. Or you could add this directly in your VTT, like Foundry, and have it appear in real time when your enemy pops out, whatever that might be. With all of these assets, there's one important note here, and that is that they can kind of be visually confusing unless you really do good shadow work. So make sure you're coming in and grabbing a shadow path. I recommend using Forgotten Adventures shadow paths. They're really good, but I do provide some here. I think they're added in the airship pack. And make sure you're coming in and adding these shadows underneath the walls to help separate them, and underneath spider eggs and things to help separate them from the background. You do have this terrain as a pattern as well, if you just want to make it in a square area and you don't want to mess with the Foundry terrain stuff. Next is a very big addition to tech ship, and that is a bunch of these pre-made ship hull parts. And a lot of them kind of scream what they are. They call themselves out. This is clearly a wing. But I encourage you to really kind of pile things on top of each other and kit bash away to get even more shapes out of them and more designs. So these don't necessarily have to be for a ship that flies through air. You could cover up these flaps, or you could layer other things on top of them to help show a more spacey kind of look. And of course, they are colorable. So they can be whatever color you want, and they can also scale pretty widely without losing detail. So you might take a wing, set this back to 1. I like to stay snapped whenever you can, just because it makes it easier when you're flipping things and aligning things. Hold A to mirror, rotate it the opposite way, drop another one on top. Not sure if that didn't get tagged. There it is. There's a smaller version. Put that on top to kind of cover the flap look, and now you have like a winglet that doesn't look like it's supposed to be for atmospheric flight per se. There is also a cockpit included. I'm planning on doing more of these, but this was kind of an experiment with a new style, or a new a workflow that allowed me to do a lot of these very quickly. So I left my phone notifications on. Bonus points to anybody who recognizes that sound. And there are also some decals here, recolorable. For my example, I built a airspace ship because I am a Macross fan and I think that's okay. And you can see how all these atoms kind of combine together. And you can also, of course, use the ones I previously provided and layer them on and build a ship. And this is where these decals come in. You can use decals in the decal tag category, or floor detail. There's lots of good stuff, little vents and things in floor detail to build up more detail on your ship. And we have weapons from a couple months ago. You can throw turrets on there. You can put guns. If you go under layer 1, we can mount guns underneath. We've got missile pods. I took this Expanse inspired PDC and tucked it underneath to get those cool gun barrels, nuke launcher, you know, whatever you want to do. And for Cyberpunk, I have started on my first foray into vehicles. This is a really difficult type of asset to make. This, I consider Cyberpunk, they're pretty good cross between something that would pass as a very modern car or a slightly futuristic one. And we've got this kind of off-roadish one, a pretty more common hatchback type deal, a supercar, and what I think will be really useful, which is this limousine. And as always, these are all fully recolorable in the vehicles category. So you can switch it up and get a little more use out of it. Oh, and also for Cyberpunk, I don't know why it took me so long to do this, but how about some Edge Runner chairs? There's one that's very inspired from a certain game franchise, and then some original ones with and without glow. Also shown here are some new paneled floors of various varieties. And to add some more content to last month's pack for large space stations, I've added tables and a chair designed to match the UltraClean set of like white walls and floors. And if you ever need to do a seagoing vessel, you're going to need some teak wood. It's basically everywhere, but also it looks really nice in a very high-tech modern setting, a corpo office for Cyberpunk, or even with the UltraClean set. And for that, I have provided a new pattern, teak wood pattern, which dropped in like that doesn't look very good. The key with this one is to build up a shape of some sort and then use the new path objects. We've got a single board and then a wider set and then an even wider set. Of course, you want these set to no transition. And I'm keeping snap on to kind of help me go with the directionality of this. And you can see it helps make a believable transition. This is kind of you might not see this much waviness normally, but you'd see something like this on a ship or a yacht. I've also added some more chairs. These are just your boring old plastic stackable chairs, but you see these used as decoration all over the place in Cyberpunk, and they kind of fit in almost any setting. Even in the future, you're going to need stackable cheap chairs. There was also some progress made on space maps, which is what it's referred to internally, or stellar cartography, which is a forthcoming Dungeondraft pack for making your own space maps. I've been authoring some planets. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to stick with this one. I don't like it, but we've got some lava planets and some what I'm calling strange planets, planets that are just I'm kind of throwing things out there, going with some crazy colors and completely frozen surfaces and no clouds and whatever, and not telling you what kind of planet it is or what its atmosphere is. That's really up to you. All I know is it's a strange planet, so I'm just going to kind of throw these things in your toolkit and allow you to decide what the narrative is for those planets. So give it a try. Stop by the Discord and feel free to share what you're working on and have fun.